So welcome to everybody. I see we still have a few that are still joining us. And so we'll be welcoming people as we go along. But first, I'd like to welcome our two esteemed guests, the Minister of Environment, Honourable Nancy Tembo. It's a huge honor to have you with us in this meeting, as well as David Bay. I think we have all seen on the posters that we are going to have these two honorable guests that will grace this meeting. And so we welcome you, and we're very thankful to have you, the High Commissioner, as well as the Minister of Forestry and Natural Resources. I'm standing in for Mathews Malata, so once he sorts his technical glitch out, I think he will be joining us. I'm sure a lot of people are excited to have him as well. He's also the president of the Association of Environmental Journalists. We also have with us the keynote speaker, who is Dominic Nyasulu. He's the coordinator for the National Youth Network on Climate Change, and they have been key in organizing this. And so we welcome you all, and thank you so much for being available. Mathews, I think you have two accounts on the list, so maybe you could take one off. Okay, so I'll quickly take us through the agenda so that we can start the meeting. So first of all, I am Gloria Kamoto. I work with the Center for Environmental Policy and Advocacy. I'm a program manager there, but I'm also the communications officer in the BRAC program, which many of you will learn more about. I'd like to welcome you today to this youth forum. It's something we've been for some time, and we're very excited to have everybody here today. The objectives of this meeting, the main thing is for us to really have those youth voices in one place and come together and develop our position on the road to COP26. So this show is for the youth. It's not about me or the minister or anybody else, but it's for you. This is the platform for the youth. So I welcome all the young climate champions that are with us today. We're very excited to have you here, and thank you for being a part of this process. On our agenda today, we'll start with the welcome remarks from the High Commissioner, and then our guest of honor, Honourable Nancy Tembo, will officially open the workshop for us, the forum, and that will be followed by a brief introduction on Malawi's role in the UNFCCC, that's the United Nations Framework on Climate Change Convention. I always forget the last C, and the process in the run-up to COP26. So that would be a presentation from the Environmental Affairs Department. And then we'll have a brief discussion, which will lead us into the breakout sessions. Now, the breakout sessions are obviously where we really need everybody to be active and participate, because that's the meat of this forum. So all of us will be put into different sessions or groups for the plenary discussion. We have already selected the rapporteurs for the groups, so please be ready to engage in that discussion and feedback to the bigger group. And then we will have the plenary report back and the discussion, and then the next steps and the closure. And I will invite one of our honorable guests to give the closing remarks.
Apologies, everyone. Not too sure what was happening, but good to be here. So at this moment, we just want to once again welcome everyone, and thank you very much indeed, Gloria, for the wonderful introduction. We have already taken much of our time, so maybe we should indeed invite the High Commissioner to talk to us. UK is very committed as far as the climate agenda is concerned here in Malawi, but also abroad, and it has done a number of things to commit to their cause in making sure that we have a safer planet. And it would be good to hear from Mr. David Beer on what plans they have for Malawi, but as well as how they want to engage young people as we go towards the Glasgow conference towards the end of the year, which failed to take place last year due to the coronavirus situation. So let me welcome to the floor, Mr. David Beer, to give us his keynote speech. Thank you very much. Over to you, Mr. Beer. Thank you.
Many thanks, Matthew. I'm going to try to run my camera so you can see me, just to make it a little more personal. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming. I'm delighted that we can be here together today. I'd firstly like to thank the Honourable Minister for Natural Resources and the Environment to have kindly agreed to be our guest of honour. You're very warmly welcome, Minister. And also, as Gloria's mentioned, Mr. Dominic Nyasulu, coordinator of the National Youth Network on Climate Change. We're delighted to have both of you. But most importantly, we have over 80 people on the line to participate, all I think under the age of 35, because it is young people who will live the future. And if you'll forgive me, I don't quite qualify as being under 35, but if you'll allow me to take part as well, I'd be very grateful. Making your voices heard ahead of one of the biggest climate change negotiations for years is obviously vitally important. The COP26 summit that the UK will host in November aims to accelerate collective action towards tackling climate change, and specifically the goals of the Paris Agreement and the UNFCCC. As hosts, we are strongly committed to delivering an inclusive and ambitious COP. These two words matter. Inclusive and ambitious. We want the world to move even faster and more decisively, but also that the agreement works for developing countries like Malawi, which are most vulnerable to the effects of climate change, and that it takes into account what ordinary people believe and want. This is why we think it's so important to have conversations like these, so that marginalized groups, experts, and activists can express your priorities and have your voices heard. Your voice is important, particularly now, when countries around the world are looking again at the ambition of their national commitments, which in COP speak are referred to as nationally determined contributions, or NDCs. We saw real progress last year at the global level, culminating in 75 leaders, including our very own President Chikwera, making ambitious commitments at the UK-hosted Climate Ambition Summit on the 12th of December. But this is not yet enough. We need to see another step up in ambition and action if we are to avoid unleashing a climate catastrophe on generations to come. That includes listening to young people like you on what you want your country to look like in the next few decades, because we have to start now. The UK believes that in the context of COVID-19, the world now has an unprecedented opportunity to reboot global economies in a manner that builds more sustainable, more inclusive, and more resilient societies. We need to see ambitious action across all three pillars of the Paris Agreement. So that's firstly to raise our ambition on mitigation at country level through developing new and updated nationally determined contributions so that we can get to net zero greenhouse gas emissions. Secondly, it means raising our ambition on adaptation at country level through building people's resilience to deal with climate change and severe weather events. And thirdly and lastly, to raise our ambition on finances, to support climate action in developing countries, and to reach the goal of mobilizing $100 billion in climate finance for mitigation and adaptation that will be available to countries like Malawi. We want to ensure those countries that are most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change are prioritized, that they are listened to, and that they have their concerns addressed, and that young people in every country play an active role in shaping this conversation, which is one of the most important that the world can have. So I'm really looking forward to and to hearing the recommendations that you will put forward. Thank you very much.
Many thanks indeed, Mr. David Beer, who is the High Commissioner, Your Excellency High Commissioner, here in Malawi, representing the UK government. Wonderful remarks indeed, and looking forward to more interactions in the future. Just to welcome our viewers via High Commission representing the UK government here in Malawi. Now we should be moving to the next item. But before we do that, just to ask our participants that if you've got any question, just make sure you put it down in the chat box. We should be able to attend to that. We have got our team in the background which is working on such kind of issues. So feel free to drop your question, and I will direct it to the right person so that they can respond to your question. If it's just a comment, feel free to do so as well. Now, let me take the opportunity of inviting the guest of honor today in this event, and this is none other than Honourable Nancy Tembo, MP, who is a Minister of Forestry and Natural Resources. She's very committed indeed on matters of the environment, and we should think that her participation in this meeting is very vital, and it signifies that the government does value the participation of young people in the climate agenda. Over to you, Honourable Minister. Thank you very much once again for joining us.
Thank you very much. I just want to thank everybody, especially the British High Commission, Mr. High Commissioner, Mr. David Beer, and all the participants to this virtual conference for the youth, where the very fact that we are holding this conference, this forum this afternoon, signifies the importance that we place the youth in our fight. And focal point for the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. We are very pleased to see this effort that places our youth at the forefront of the fight against climate change. I would like to congratulate the partnership that has organized this event for organizing the importance of the voice of young people in matters of importance, such as climate change management. This is timely as countries that are party to the Climate Change Convention are preparing for their participation at the 26th Conference of the Parties, which will be held in Glasgow, Scotland in 2021. As one of the least developed countries, Malawi is preparing to attend the upcoming COP26 with very high expectations that COP26 will deliver tangible outcomes that will help to save our communities, our ecosystems, and our hard-earned development gains from further devastation from climate change, such as floods, droughts, prolonged dry spells, erratic rainfall, and climate-induced cyclones. The government of Malawi and its implementing partners stand ready to undertake the much required urgent climate action. We have the necessary enabling policy frameworks, strategic documents, plans, and programs in place to guide coordinated climate action in the country. The nationally determined contributions and the national adaptation plans are worth mentioning as key framework documents that the Climate Convention recognizes, and they are the basis for monitoring and verifying carbon emissions reductions and for leveraging adaptation finance, respectively. Government is in the process of revising our 2015 nationally determined contributions, which basically outline actions to be undertaken by the country towards climate change adaptation and mitigation during the 2015 to 2040 period. The National Adaptation Plan process is underway underway with financial support from the Green Climate Fund. The NAP will identify medium and long-term adaptation priorities for the country and contribute to long-term community and ecosystem resilience. The youth and other special groupings will be duly consulted during this process. My ministry recognizes the youth as an integral grouping that is necessary to foster innovation and the technical solutions to some of the environmental challenges that we face as a country. You, our youth, have the energy and the technical know-how in incubating and implementing some of the tried and tested technological solutions by researchers here in Malawi and elsewhere. As government, we have so far engaged the youth in various activities to empower them, fostering sustainable environment and climate change management in the country. For example, we have engaged young people through the Malawi Youth Forest Restoration Project, which started in the 2018-2019 financial year. This is the flagship project in the implementation of the National Forest Landscape Restoration Strategy, making Malawi one of the only 2 countries in Africa that are investing public funding directly into the forest landscape restoration. The Department of Forestry, Department of Youth, city and district councils, together with the National Youth Council of Malawi and the National Local Government Finance Committee have been collaborating closely to ensure that the program is implemented as expected. The project is expected to contribute to a large restoration and the achievement of the 4.5 million hectares for restoration that Malawi has committed to undertake by 2030. In the 2 years of implementation, the project has engaged 62,990 youth in 2,275 groups across the country, with a total allocation of 2.5 billion kwacha. Cumulatively, the project facilitated planting of a total of 4,026,000 seedlings of the mainly indigenous trees on 4,893 hectares of land in the 2-year period. However, due to competing demands for treasury resources, the program was not allocated resources in the current year, but we endeavor to resume the project in the coming year. Government, with support from UNDP, introduced and launched the Applied Research Innovation Window in October 2020, with the overall goal of enhancing Malawi's research uptake and adaptation of climate-smart approaches and climate-friendly technologies. To date, 5 firms, 3 of which are youth-led, have been awarded grants to the tune of $40,000 each. The grants are expected to support implementation and foster adaptation of the respective technologies and innovations that are being promoted. The second cohort will commence in March with the development of guidelines, and this will be aligned to current government priorities. Youth-led organizations venturing into innovation technologies are encouraged to apply for these grants. Another notable engagement is a national youth network on climate change, which was established to collaborate with government in tackling climate change in the country. Recognizing the capacity challenges that the network faces, government secured some funding from the United Nations Institute for Training and Research, UNITA, under the UNFCCC LEARN program to strengthen the youth network. The program, which is closing this month, has assisted the network to come up with a strategic plan to guide the operations of the network, and also to install a website to enhance their visibility and improve networking amongst their membership. We expect to see a vibrant youth network that will be able to mobilize themselves, mobilize resources, and define their role in supporting government in fostering ambitious climate action at the national level, as well as in the global climate. During the first phase of the project in 2013, my ministry facilitated the mainstreaming of climate change into the primary and secondary school curricula through the provision of posters and source books. Climate change is now an examinable topic in our schools. I would also like to inform you that my ministry is working with the United Nations Development Programme through the National Green Corps Initiative, which aims to create green jobs for the youth in environmental restoration, climate change adaptation, as well as contribute to the ongoing efforts by the government of Malawi to safeguard and expand employment opportunities across the country, particularly for young women and men, while accelerating a green economic transition. The initiative will provide at least 2,000 youth aged between 18 to 30 with temporary employment of up to 4 months, and will build upon and assume the approach of the Malawi Youth Forest Restoration Project, and will also support young entrepreneurs that are working on creating wealth from waste as an innovative way of not only cleaning up our environment of waste, but also creating jobs and sustainable livelihoods of our young people. We expect to launch the Malawi Green Corps initiative within the first quarter of 2021. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, before I conclude my remarks, allow me to bring to your attention some of the global efforts that Malawi is part of related to adaptation and resilience. Malawi signed the United Nations Climate Action Summit Call for Action on Adaptation and Resilience initiative. We have worked very closely with the UK government as one of the front-runner countries that partnered with the UK government to lead the adaptation and resilience strand. Government appreciates the effort from the UK government and we welcome any further direct technical and financial support that can be targeted for Malawi to implement this initiative. Malawi is also part of the least developed countries initiative for effective adaptation and resilience, LAFARE, an initiative that will focus on ensuring meaningful investments to build climate resilience in local communities. Through Life AR principles and the LDC vision, the country is ready to set an example for moving away from business as usual to a more effective, efficient, and society-driven climate action implementation approach, and move towards carbon neutrality by the year 2050. The youth are expected to be an important implementing partner when the initiatives are finally rolled out, particularly in promotion innovative adaptation and mitigation technologies in the various climate-related sectors. In preparation for Malawi's participation at the Conference of the Parties, government formulates a position paper that comprises all the key issues that the country intends to undertake during the negotiations and stakeholders, including government ministries, departments, and agencies. The youth, civil society, organizations, the academia, and the media are invited to contribute towards the country's position paper. The same procedure will be followed as we prepare for our participation at the upcoming COP26. Malawi's priorities for the negotiations include support in adaptation and resilience building through implementation on the national adaptation plans and the nationally determined contributions, support in issues of loss and damage, support in technology development and transfer, support in promotion of climate smart agriculture and gender responsiveness, and mobilization of climate finance to support national climate action. This event is therefore timely and provides an important platform for collecting inputs into Malawi's position paper for COP26, as I believe that outcomes from this forum will feed into the paper. It is my sincere hope that the youth will be supported to be part of the Malawi delegation at the COP26, as it will afford them the opportunity to be part of the global climate agenda through experience sharing, and most importantly, to lobby for more ambitious climate action from high polluting countries. Let me assure you that government, through my ministry, will continue to support youth initiatives that are aimed at promoting environmental rehabilitation, landscape restoration, climate resilience, and overall environmental sustainability. Finally, I would like to thank the UK government for the technical and financial support that they render to the Malawi government in matters of climate change management. It is my sincere hope that we will have fruitful deliberations to achieve the objectives of this very important forum. And thank you for your attention. Thank you, Mr. Malata. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister, for a great speech. Loaded, lots of things that have been highlighted in your speech, Honourable Minister, and I'm sure our young people are taking some notes. Like we have said, if you've got any question, please feel free to drop that question in the chat box. We should be able to attend to that. But we really want to appreciate you, Honourable Minister, once again for the speech well delivered. Let me repeat, it was really loaded with lots of things that we really can focus on. And I'm sure as we're going to break out into different sessions, I think we should be able to discuss some of the things which the Honourable Minister has highlighted, and he has given us really some cue as far as what the government is really doing at the moment is concerned in making sure that we're able to handle the climate change issue effectively. Once again, thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Now, having heard from the British High Commissioner to Malawi and the Honourable Minister, we need to move on by inviting an official from the Environmental Affairs Department. The official is going to highlight on the like Malawi's role in the UNFCCC processes in the run-up to the COP26. What is our role? And maybe they can also expand more on what these NDCs are and basically what happens when we are at the COP. So may I invite the relevant official from the Environmental Affairs Department to give us that presentation in keeping with the allocated time. Thank you very much indeed.
Okay, thank you so much. I think I'm having maybe 4 presentations in one, but I've tried as much as possible to summarize for the interest of this forum and also the youth that are here. I would like to begin by sharing you my outline for the presentation. My name is Chimwemwe Jonas. I'm with the Environmental Affairs Department, and I'm also a youth. So I'll just give you a background in terms of what we are doing as far as climate change is concerned, and then how we are responding to the climate change issues as a country. We'll zero in much more on the nationally determined contributions, as already alluded to by the Honourable Minister, as well as the High Commissioner to the UK. Also, I'll talk about the National Adaptation Plan, the National Climate Change Fund, and then I'll finalize with the highlights in terms of the upcoming COP26. We've heard that as Malawi, we are a party to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And by being a party to this, we have several obligations that we are supposed to undertake as a country. And we have ratified the Kyoto Protocol and the Paris Agreement. I'm sure maybe some of us might be hearing this for the first time, but basically the Kyoto Protocol is just an international treaty or an agreement which was made for countries to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So these are sort of commitments that were agreed in Kyoto in 1997, but the Kyoto went into force in 2005, but Malawi ratified it in 2001. For the Paris Agreement, this is more famous, maybe because of the pulling out of the United States, who have now joined back again. But this is the agreement which was done in 2015 in Paris And basically, parties agreed to reduce the global temperature to below 2 degrees Celsius. So we are obliged to be implementing these treaties as a country being a party to the UNFCCC. The Ministry of Forestry and Natural Resources in Malawi is responsible for coordinating all environment and climate change management issues. So in terms of the policy, we are the holder of the policy, and we are the ones who coordinate everything related to climate change. So if you have questions in terms of climate change policy and whatnot, feel free to visit us and we'll be giving you the information. So Environmental Affairs Department sits in this ministry, and because we are responsible for coordinating environment and climate change, we are the focal point to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. I think by now, it is more evident that climate change is real and it is here, and we have experienced the effects of climate change, especially in the last 2 decades. To take note, here in Lilongwe, on 18th November 2020, we recorded temperature up to 37 degrees Celsius. Which is not normal. This is maybe normal temperature in the lower Chile or maybe in the lake shores, but not in the Lilongwe, but this is happening. And also if you look at the start length as well as quality of rainy seasons, it's quite changing and also quite erratic. But most notable are the prolonged dry spells that we normally have year in, year out, as well as flooding issues. You may recall that now flooding is no longer just in lower Chile states, but also even right here in Lilongwe. We've had cases in area 47, we've had cases in area 49 where there's been urban flooding. All these are increasing in frequency because of climate change. We are having heavy downpours. We've heard about water levels fluctuating in the Chile River, which affects our hydropower, and also outbreak of pests and diseases, most notably the armyworms infestation, which we had last year and the previous year, which affected our crop yield. So climate change is here, and we are supposed to do something about it. So what are we doing? Here, just to show you a picture for you to appreciate. You see there, that's a picture of Lake Chiro, which dried up due to a prolonged dry spell. And you can see the boats are actually in the lake, which is not a norm. And also down there, that's a picture courtesy of the Nation paper. That's 2017. And you can see it's like a car is drowning while it is parked. So these are some of the issues that we are talking about and we need to take action on. Yeah, so as the country, as a ministry, and as a department, there are a lot of strategies, policies, as well as plans that have been formulated to assist us address the climate change issues. We know overall we have the Malawi Growth and Development Strategy 3, which is a national development agenda, which has prioritized issues of climate change management as well as environment. We also have what we call the National Resilience Strategy. This is a strategy which was launched in 2018 and signed by the president. It also outlines some of the resilient pillars that we are supposed as a country to be implementing and ensure that we fully support. Specific to climate change, we have a national climate change management policy. This one basically wants to ensure that there is a coordinated and harmonized approach in terms of climate change management. So everything that we do in terms of national climate change issues is supposed to talk to this policy. And then we are going to zero in more on the NDC, as I had already indicated, as well as the National Adaptation Plan. But notable also, we have those other strategies like National Appropriate Mitigation Actions, just outlining what we supposed to do to reduce greenhouse gases, as well as the National Adaptation Programs of Action, which highlights urgent and immediate adaptation needs for the country. There are also sectoral policies that are there. Maybe you've heard about the forestry policy, fisheries policy, irrigation policy. All these, they are also integrating some aspects of climate change management so that we have a harmonized approach as we implement climate change issues in the country. So basically, this is how, as a country, we are responding to climate change issues. But like I said, we are going to zero in mostly on the NDC and the National Adaptation Plan. The Minister, as well as the High Commissioner, tackled what NDCs are, but just to refresh your memories, these are just actions, or I can say pledges or commitments that governments which are parties to the to the convention are supposed to undertake in mitigation, adaptation, technology transfer to limit global warming, as well as increase resilience to impact of climate change. So basically, we want to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, which is the root cause of climate change. But at the same time, the problem is here: how do we survive? We also need to adapt and build our resilience as a country. So NDCs outline these actions that we need to undertake. And this is in response to the Paris Agreement, which is looking at reducing the global temperature to 2 degrees Celsius, as I mentioned. We launched the NDC in 2015. So it was in 2015 when we had our NDC formulated. That's the current NDC which we have right now. And we had a task force, a national one, which was looking at the formulation process. But also we involved some international experts to assist us because we had a very limited time to have this done and then submit. The whole process was done probably in 6 months or thereabouts, if I'm not mistaken, but we submitted in 2015 October, as it was an obligation for all parties to do so. So we got support from Climate Analytics. This is an organization in Germany, as well as the United States Agency for International Development, through a project which was running in the environmental affairs called PERFORM. This NDC, the current one, its implementation period is from 2015 to 2040. So all the commitments, the actions that in that NDC are supposed to be implemented in this particular time frame. Moving on, the NDC for Malawi is looking at both mitigation and adaptation. Being a least developed country, we have a leeway to include adaptation in our NDCs. But for the developed countries, they are only focusing on the mitigation element. So these are some of the sectors that we are looking at. Under mitigation, we're looking at agriculture, forestry, and other land use as a sector. And then we're also looking at the industry as a sector, then waste and energy. Why these sectors? These are the key sectors that contribute a lot in terms of emissions in the country. So most of our emissions are coming from the agriculture and land use sector, and then followed by energy, then waste, then industry. The reason being our industry is not very vibrant, so we are not contributing more from the industry, but we are an agriculture-led economy, so this sector stands out as the most emitting sector. And under adaptation, the current NDC had those sectors. Agriculture comes in again, and then water, health, infrastructure, land use planning, transport, and population. So these are the sectors where now we need to have intervention which would assist us to build resilience and also build our adaptive capacity as a country. So just to give you some highlights, we have the NDC online. It's available, and I would urge all of us to try and Google it so that we can have it. It shouldn't cost you a lot of data. Maybe 20 KB or less, you can have the document. So these are just some of the key initiatives that are being promoted in the NDC, but there is more with targets and everything that you need to know. But for the purposes of this meeting, I just highlighted some of the key interventions that are in the NDC. So under mitigation, we would want as much as possible to try and intensify mass transportation, which means we need to recommend the use of mass transport so that we reduce emissions that we have from the transport sector. These days, people are having 3-4 cars when they're just living, maybe a family of one child, but everyone has a car. What if we use mass transport? So we need to intensify that. And then also production of solar water heaters. That's another area which we are recommending. Hydropower generation, we already use it, but we can do more in terms of hydro to ensure that our energy is very clean. And also issues to do with afforestation and reforestation. The minister talked about the restoration program that is being championed by Forestry. Those are some of the enablers or interventions that we are doing to ensure that that target. And adaptation, we are promoting construction of multi-purpose dams where the same dam can be used for irrigation, can be used for domestic purposes, can be used for fish farming, and other key issues that we think would help our communities, could help the youth, could help our women in various locations of the country. And also we need to enhance increase land under irrigation, water harvesting technology.
Sorry, you saw my text. Maybe you may want to wind up.
All right, maybe let me just up the pace. Like I said, I'm having maybe 4 presentations in one, but I'll try to accelerate.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so to move on quickly, we are right now reviewing the NDC because we want the NDC to have a robust M1E so that we can be able to monitor and see how much we've done in terms of progress. And also we should have a clear resource mobilization strategy that will assist us to implement the NDC. So basically, that's it about NDC. Moving to National Adaptation Plan. The National Adaptation Plan, basically now these are the adaptation needs that we need to implement in the medium and long term. And these strategies are supposed to be country-driven and also participatory. So as we formulate our NAP, the youth are going to be consulted in other relevant sectors. The objective is just to reduce vulnerability to the impact of climate change, as well as building adaptive capacity and resilience. For the NAP, we launched it in 2014, and what we are doing right now is now the actual formulation of the NAP process. We've received support from the Green Climate Fund to enable us do this. And we also did a stock taking report, which has highlighted the gaps that are there in terms of climate change adaptation in the country. So we've received about $3 million to develop our NAP. And we envisage that this NAP is going to be in line with other projects that are running in the country, like the Life AR project, which was mentioned, as well as the strategic program for climate resilience, which has recommended some analytical studies that should be done in terms of adaptation. So what would be the role of the youth in the NDCs and the NAPs? So as the youth, you will be a key stakeholder in the formulation process, as well as the formulation process of the NAP, as well as the revision process of the NDC. We are going to ensure that you are consulted, probably through the Youth Network on Climate Change. And also, you are supposed to play an integral role in implementation of the Action App and the NDC, as well as championing mindset change to ensure that we have green technologies and innovations that are in line with NAP and NDC. So you can see I've put in right there to say we need to plan for our future as well as future generations, as we are the energetic hub of the nation. So we are depending on the youth to ensure that they drive this forward and make sure that our NDC and NAP are fully implemented. Yeah, on the fund, I think here I'll just run quickly. This is just something that we have established as a ministry to ensure that climate change finance is channeled, programmed, and dispersed to in the country. So basically, we are expecting that the fund will receive financial inputs from both external and domestic sources, as well as the private sector. And organizations should be able to apply flow concepts and proposals and get these funds and then implement various projects, which will also implement our NDC and our NAP. We are currently we have currently developed regulations as progress for the fund, and also negotiating with the Ministry of Finance to channel the carbon levy for the purpose of the fund. Yeah, I think I have one more slide, Mathews. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
right.
I can hear you. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so in terms of capitalization of the fund, we're expecting that we can have domestic resources through these levies that will go into that fund, and also get some funds from the financial climate mechanism that is set by the UNFCCC, like the Green Climate Fund, as well as the Global Environment Facility. We have developed the standard operating procedures for the fund. We've opened the account upon advice from the Treasury. And right now, we've developed a job option for a fund manager, which is going to be recruited through the Department of Human Resource Management in the country. And we are still in talks with that department to help us do that. So basically, this is about the fund. And finally, just highlights on the COP26. It's just this slide. Most of us, I think, know we are going to have the COP26 from the 1st to 12th November 2021 in Glasgow, Scotland, the UK. This COP was supposed to be in 2020, but it was postponed due to COVID-19 pandemic. And it is our sincere hope that this time around it's not going to be postponed again. But preparations are ongoing, and these are being done virtually. And Malawi as a country, we are contributing to the thematic positions of key issues, especially for the African group of countries, as well as the least developed countries. So we are having virtual calls to contribute to this. As the youth, you can't participate at the COP, but you need to be accredited and registered by the Environmental Affairs Department as the focal point of the UNFCCC. And also, of course, there's need for funding to facilitate your lodging, air tickets, and accommodation and other incidentals. But our request is that the youth should contribute to the position paper for Malawi. We are going to develop a position paper, which we are going to present at the COP for Malawi in terms of how we want to drive forward climate change interventions for the country. And we are going to consult a lot and ensure that you'll be part of this process. The expected outcomes from this COP, we expect that the Paris Agreement now will enter into full force in order to raise climate action and ambition. We are also expecting that there will be adoption of the rules book for implementation, especially for the NDC, climate finance, as well as loss and damage, etc., etc. Yeah, but just to mention that before the COP, we are going to also we are planning to have a green conference where my stakeholders are going to meet just to ensure that they contribute into the country position paper, so that when we go with the position, it should be something which has inputs from all sectors that we have in the country. So basically, that's just a highlight of the COP, but this is an ongoing process. We have about 10 months to go, and we will be together throughout as we prepare for the COP. So this is what I had to share. I have my colleagues here, I have my director, deputy director, and also other colleagues in the climate change section. If we if the audience may need to have some more information. Thank you so much, Mathews.
Thank you very much, Chimwemwe, for such a thrilling presentation. Quite a lot indeed. I think 2 hours was a big underestimation. It seems you've got a lot to share. And then if you see in the chat box, there is also like a lot of information, comments and questions that are coming forth. And I think we really need to make sure we have these interactions so that we can, you know, build the gap that's there and make sure everyone is informed and that we are on the same page in as far as these climate interventions are concerned. So thanks indeed for taking your time to give us that update. And many thanks indeed, everyone from the Environmental Affairs Department. It's quite comforting to see this high-level participation from the government. I think it really encourages everyone, and it gives hope that the things that we're talking about could really be the actions that we would like to see in the near future in order to combat or minimize the impacts of climate change. We have Mr. Dominic Nyasulu. He's the National Coordinator for the National Youth Network on Climate Change. What happened is that we floated a call of interest, inviting young people who are interested to be part of this meeting to apply. The response was just so overwhelming, but we only could manage to take on board about 80 of them. And if you are here, please count yourself lucky, but also relevant, because you are representing many out could not have been, who couldn't be here to join this meeting. So make sure that whatever you get from here, also able to share with your colleagues, because we know some of you are young leaders in these efforts of your own organizations and initiatives that you're running. So make sure you share the information and all the outcomes that are going to come out of this meeting. So let me invite Dominic Nyasulu to share with us some of the actions that the young people will be doing between now and at the time we will be having the Glasgow conference, but also beyond that, because climate change is a global agenda, but I think it will not stop after the Glasgow conference. I think the Glasgow conference is just there to beef up the momentum, but also see some of the renewed commitments coming from different countries and stakeholders to make sure that we are able to remain focused, but also trace some of the commitments that other countries have been able to do. Are we making progress or not? So that's why we'll be meeting to discuss all those things. But for now, let me give the floor to Dominic Nyasulu to share with us some of the insights for news preparation, but also specific actions. Over to you, Dominic.
Thank you, Mathews Malata.
I'll be strict with you. I'm giving you 3 to 4 minutes.
Yeah, I'll be very short. Our guest of honor, the Right Honourable Nancy Tembo MP, and also the special guest, the British High Commissioner to Malawi. My fellow young people and all participants attending this forum this afternoon. I think as a network, we thank government for its bold decision in terms of investing in young people so that we are part and parcel of the decision-making processes regarding climate change management in Malawi. The minister earlier mentioned about how the government is supporting the youth through the National Youth Network on Climate Change, which is a key in engaging active youth participation. Just to remind my fellow young people that last year we were engaged as a network by the Environmental Affairs Department to build or to enhance as a secretariat capacity so that it should be able to carry out competently its activity and also influence policy decision-making processes. I think that's one of the key board decisions by the ministry. And I think our minister mentioned about that the government is supporting UNFCCC strategic plan 2021 to 2025, and also enhancing the visibility. So they're also supporting us the development of the website, and also other capacity development initiatives within as a network. I think as a network we are very much appreciative for this forum, especially that this is the first of this kind in terms of engaging the youth so that they can amplify their voices on issues that affect them as regards to climate change. My focus, few slides of few issues, maybe we'll focus on the implementation. I think as a country, we have seen that we have managed to develop a policy, but I think we have not managed to really identify how young people can be engaged and how young people can be involved. But I think this is an opportunity, considering the fact that in 2020, the United Nations declared that 2020 to 2030 should be a decade for climate actions and also biodiversity conservation. And that can only be achieved when you have the capacity to dealing with the issue that we have as a country and also as young people. And also considering the fact that the Paris Agreement will come into force, and also the Malawi government is updating its national determined contribution and also developing the NAP. But then I think the question is, where do we place young people? What role can they play in all these issues? So this is an opportunity for us as young people to deliver our views, to deliver our solutions, the best practices that we can contribute into this process. And also acknowledging the fact that the government of Malawi is a party to the Paris Agreement and also the participation into this year's Conference of Parties. It is imperative to know that the government has been supporting the youth to participate into these meetings. But I think maybe perhaps the challenge has been the financial aspect of it. And we believe that I think in capacitating those who are able to participate so that they should contribute effectively into the process will be key. And the actual increase in number of the youth participation during the COP26 is very, very critical so that we can influence the ambitious outcome of COP26, which is very, very critical. So it begins with us as young people to be able to demand what we feel like can be a better position for Malawi so that it can input into the global agenda. So in summary, what I wanted to pass through that all these initiatives can be well coordinated if we have the national youth engagement strategy, where it can track progress and investment on how young people are engaged at national level with various stakeholders, with the government, and at all levels. So maybe my takeaway message to the ministry and other stakeholders is that with the current status quo, where we don't have the national youth engagement strategy, it's very difficult for the government to measure the level of investment in youth engagement by various stakeholders. So maybe perhaps we need to have such a strategy where we can really measure the investment that various stakeholders are making as far as youth engagement is concerned. And also capacity building is key to the process. So I believe that those who have been identified to be part and parcel of this process are key to represent their fellow youth so that at the end of the day, we identify practical issues that we can input into the three processes as presented by my fellow young people from Environmental Affairs Department, which is the COP process, the NAP, and also the National Determined Contribution. We are going to apply various activities, engaging the government on the position from this meeting, and also engaging other stakeholders on how they can support the youth, moving away from just event-based support to programming-based support that is really critical if we are to achieve the meaningful youth engagement and participation. Thank you so much, the moderator.
Thank you very much, Dominic, for your speech. Quite inspiring indeed. I think we really need to act. We really need to do more because time is not on our side. We may claim that age is on our side, but time is not on our side because we really need to have these or reduce by half the greenhouse emissions which different countries are emitting into the atmosphere. And to do that, there's really need to push for significant actions that will make sure that our planet is safe again. And for that to happen, there is need to up the momentum. And the people who can be able to drive that momentum are young people. And it happens to be that some of them are here. I'm sure most of us, we have come across most of the statements by the Swedish climate activist. This is another than Greta Thunberg. She's very active indeed, very powerful activist. You need to follow the times. And in one of the meetings, she said, the eyes of all future generations are upon you. She was trying to address the leaders. And if you choose to fail us, I say we will never forgive you. This was at the UN Climate Summit in New York on 23 September 2019. So sure, our eyes are on our leaders. We are hoping that you're going to help us deliver, but at the same time, we also have got the capacity to push the things as quickly as we can. So due to time, let me invite my colleague, Gloria, to take us to the next step. Obviously, we have to now go into groups and have a bit of a discussion. Over to you, Gloria.
Okay, thank you, Mathews. I'm not even going to take time. I'm just immediately going to let you all know that you will now be put into groups. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have clean energy, we have afforestation and reforestation, we have waste management, we have climate smart agriculture and water resources management, and we have education and mindset change. We have youth and grassroots engagement and sustainable livelihoods. So you have discussions in your groups. We have already chosen the reporters and you have a facilitator in your group. Please be active. Thank you so much for all the engagement in the chat box. Please take this to your groups and come up with very good, very concrete inputs that can be consolidated. You report back after the groups. We have really eaten into the time that was meant to be for discussions. So I would suggest that we go into our groups until 3:50, which is 10 minutes to 4, so that you at least have enough time to discuss. Yeah, okay, so let's go.
Welcome back, everybody. I hope you were able to have some good discussions, even if we had slightly less time than we had hoped there. I know we gave you an ambitious task to come up with several priorities to share back, but I'm sure everyone in the other groups would like to now hear what you managed to discuss in the group that you were in. So we'll take each group in turn and we'll ask the reporter from that group to please feed back the 3 priorities. So can we please start with the clean energy group?
Yeah, hi everybody. So this is Joseph Kenson Sakala, and I'll be reporting on the top 3 priorities from the energy group. So we first looked at developing and bringing in new technologies, including those reaching remote areas, and also considering on the same technology, the best new technologies out there. For example, there was an example during our discussion that in Austria they have managed to develop like a slim paper solar cells, which is more efficient and also cost effective. So we're just looking at as a nation, as Malawi, as we are working on the NDC, I think it's important to prioritize and capitalize on developing and bringing new technologies in the direction of clean energy. And the second point was making renewable energy accessible. So we are looking at how many people can afford renewable energy such as solar, gas, and other forms of renewable energy. So we need to use approaches that are accessible to local communities and convenient for people to use. So that will help to make considerable significant progress in the direction of renewable energy. And instead of capitalizing still on fossil fuels in this age while the global community is divesting from fossil fuels towards renewable energy. So the last point, which is also very key, being an agro-based economy, is to build climate resilience in agriculture. And we are looking even beyond agriculture at personal lifestyles, like the kind of energy that you use as a person or as a household. So even scaling down to that personal level and household level, yeah. So those are the three priority areas, issues of technology, making renewable energy accessible, and also the climate resilience.
Great, many thanks for sharing those. And of course, we will be noting all of these down and sharing them so you have them in written form as well. Can we hand over quickly to the Afforestation and Reforestation group, please?
Right, thank you so much. So from the afforestation and the afforestation programs, these are our top 3 priorities. Firstly, it is incentivizing the afforestation programs or initiatives being done by different individuals and organizations, which include tree planting projects, the sustainability and post-harvest control of the planted trees, and involvement of communities during tree planting initiatives. And secondly, allowing growth of the natural indigenous species by ensuring that we plant indigenous species that conform to the soil chemistry of that area. And thirdly, intensifying the replacement of firewood with other clean and smart cooking alternatives, of which still shows that majority of Malawians still rely on firewood as a cooking alternative. So we really need to intensify on replacing it with other cooking alternatives. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that concise overview of very important priorities. Next, can we hand over to the Waste Management Group, please?
Thank you. In our group, we discussed the 3 priorities. The first one was we noticed that there's a gap between policies and implementation of those policies. And this gap can be addressed using many solutions, but what we came up with was that there's need for collaboration among councils. All councils need to work together to address problems concerning waste management. And there is also sensitization of the private sector, municipalities and communities. The private operators, they need to be very conversant with the whole process or the holistic picture that's associated with waste management as a whole. And the second point is promotion or investment in existing green technologies. And at the same time, there is need to upscale initiatives that are already happening, but maybe on a very small scale, or maybe efforts from informal waste pickers. So we need to recognize these, upscale them, and make sure they are known to different sectors of the government and the nation. The third one is advocacy. There is also a gap in a sense that most people preach the message about waste management, but when it comes to practice, even if you notice in the government offices, people don't actually practice what they preach. So maybe we need to advocate for that as well, that people should practice what they preach. among other things, there's need for separation of waste so that we increase the recycling percentage of that waste. Each item needs to be dumped in a specific bin so that when it's taken to the dumping site, that it makes it easier for the people who are recycling that waste to turn it into new items or different innovations. Just to go back on the part of investing or promoting green technologies, maybe the government also needs to open up more in terms of more like into the education sector now. The government can push educational programs that will ensure that students are able to learn or practice how these other technologies can be made or how these other technologies work, so that in their respective areas they can collect waste and also be able to turn it into new items. We noticed that for example, the National Cleanup Day is there, it's happening, but then what do we do with the waste after we have collected it?
I think the meeting ended.
So that's what we discussed in our group. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mathews, do you want to take over again?
Sure, I'm okay. So we can have the next group, I think.
So the agriculture and water can go next.
That's right.
Oh, thank you. So climate smart agriculture intentionally is an approach that practices different practices that to protect environment and also to expand the natural resource base, as well as improve water resource conservation. So as you can see, the topic is very broad. So it was very hard for us to pinpoint which practices should be implemented, like the priority 3 areas. So what we did was to highlight that so that we can be able to plan and also to have a clear evaluation of what we want to achieve. So this is by focusing on adaptation practices as a developing country. We want to focus on the things that we can manage, because we cannot be focusing on mitigation and other practices. So we are focusing on practices like river basin management, rainwater harvesting, and also to champion green practices that can help us to curb the impact of climate change. And the second one was that climate smart agriculture and water resource management should work in harmony, because maybe as a country we are an agrarian community where we focus much on the economy from cultivation of land. We forget about the importance of water resource management. So we end up maybe practicing agriculture in conservative areas like the marsh. So what we want to do is to integrate climate smart agriculture and water resource management so that the challenges are addressed in tandem. The third one was context specific messages. We want to improve in sustainable practices. So we have, that's the message that we are giving to the farmers. That's the message that we are carrying. We need to carry a message that is focusing on commercialization of agriculture and protection of the resources, so that we create a transformative social learning environment to understand that even though the government, for example, maybe it's giving us the ability, the resources, but as people, as a nation, we should also recognize the value in the help that the government is giving us, and so that we change the environment as a social change, not just something that is coming because the government says so. And
from the same context, we also highlighted that the youth should be highlighted in what the roles they carry, in what specifically why the youth should be involved in agriculture and why their vibrance is so much mentioned in the conversation of the natural resources and in agriculture. So that's what we discussed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Climate-smart agriculture and water resources management. Could we have education and mindset change on the floor? Thank you.
Thank you, Mathews. To begin with, advocacy without action, it is a dead end. So they say. That is the reason our group, we discussed that action-based policies should be the first priority. This is to do with walking the talk. For example, look at the thin plastic ban that was recently been placed. Of course, we have that law that thin plastics have been banned, but they're still there in the market. So we need to start walking the talk. Enforcement, it is an ideal thing to do. And also, Honourable Minister Nancy Tembo did mention that climate change has been included in the syllabus. It is now examinable topic. And she also said that climate messages are out there in schools. But I can challenge the minister right now that if she can go to Bulala Primary Secondary School, if she can go to Muhuju, if she can go to Eswazini, she won't find that. It is because we are not coming up with action-based policies. So that is number one. On number two, youth inclusion in all initiatives on climate change. I've once heard Barack Obama saying that the previous generation was hit by climate change. Yes, we agree. But now, this generation of ours, it will be hit worse and it will be hit hard. So we have the key to change everything. End of quote. What we discussed on this point is that we should include youths in all levels. These are the young bloods that have the voice, that have the talent to have the key in combating climate change. The third one, not last, of course, but due to this protocol, of course, it will be the last one. Legal awareness. People are just walking around the streets like animals per se, because they do not know what the law says. What does the law say on issues to do with thin plastics? They do not know that. If government and non-government organization can come up with campaigns to make people aware about the laws governing the environmental sector, we can amplify the voice of the youth, we can amplify the voice of the world, and together we can win this war whom we are fighting for. Remember, in this war, we are the enemy. We're not fighting anybody else outside extraordinarily. It is us people who are destroying the climate. It is us people who are destroying the world. And ironically, it is us who will end this war. To end this presentation, I'll quote David Beer in his speech today. He said, "Make your voice heard on climate change issues. Your voice is important, particularly now." Reaching that juncture, thank you very much, Mathews.
Wow, I like the energies. Thank you very much indeed. Quite interesting issues really coming out from these groups. Many thanks again for the insights. Let's now move to youth and grassroots engagement. If you're ready, over to you.
Right, so the top 3 priorities from our group are...
so you may also introduce yourself so that people can know who you are.
My name is Jaya Mutali, and I'm from the group that did youth and grassroots movement engagement. So from our group, the first resolution was amplifying youth voices. That is by building the capacity of youth leaders in Malawi, since we already have many community-based organizations that are focused on climate change, but the leaders do not have the knowledge or skills to build the movement. So we need to build the capacity of the leaders so that they're able to influence change in their different communities, and we're able to have a grassroots and youth vibrant movement. The second thing was meaningful participation of the youth at both grassroots as well as youth organizations. So whenever we have interventions that are focusing on the youth and grassroots, we need to have meaningful participation by ensuring that there is equal representation from the group, as well as involving everyone in the communities so that they do not feel exploited, but rather building a movement that is involving everyone and on in the communities. The last resolution was the financing of community-based initiatives that are led by the youth as well as the grassroots. So youth do not know how to mobilize resources in Malawi. So it's very important that we allocate funds at district levels as well as those funds have to be flexible for young people to be able to get them, as well as for grassroots people to be able to access them without having so many regulations. And they should be able to be resourceful to all of them. The last, as well as investing in green energy sources that are sustainable and proven to work for grassroots and youth, and that are spearheaded by the youth and the grassroots so that they're easily adopted. That was all from our group.
All right, thank you so much indeed, quite interesting. Let's now move to the last group, the seventh group, and welcome back our Honourable Minister and all distinguished guests that are attending this important meeting. The last group is Sustainable Livelihoods. You have the floor, over to you.
Thank you, Mathews. Last is good, the Minister is back, at least. I'm Kondwani Wis, I'm representing a group that was tackling sustainable livelihoods. So we started looking at the examples of good practices first, and then we moved to look at the priorities, like recommendations going forward. So some of the good practices that came out from the group includes mainstream strategies. So our group started at a high note, looking at the broader picture, mainstreaming of sustainable development goals, and focus was mainly on context building goals, including the no poverty, zero hunger, climate action, and sustainable consumption goals. So those are some of the input that came in. Another good practice was to provide alternative livelihood options other than agriculture, but at the same time trying to foster sustainable agriculture approaches so that we can reap from two ends. Another practice was income generation activities. So we identify income generation activities that are promoting green economies. Another one was to adopt green energy sources. So you look at these inputs, you find that most of them are weaving into each other. Establish more rural urban centers. So you move the urban centers to the rural communities so that them as well can enhance their livelihoods and make them sustainable. Another one was creation of green jobs for the youth to make greener economy a normal. So it should not be an option that we should sing or should advocate for each and every time that let's do this, let's move to the greener economy. Let's start with the youth that are here now. Let's promote a culture of promoting a green economy so that we make it a normal going forward. Another good practice was the usual climate smart agriculture interventions that we already do. So if we could upscale that, but have focus on practices that are environmental friendly. We can also exploit agriculture value chains through enhancement of people's capabilities and assets. So we invest in people, especially the youth, to gain those capabilities and have those access to assets that can help them exploit the different value chains that we have. So issues of capacity there can be addressed. Intensifying climate proofing agriculture. So our agriculture sector is heavily hit by the impacts resulting from climate change. If we could already run ahead and have our agriculture sector and its infrastructure climate, we should build at least resilient or sustainable livelihoods going forward. Another one was adopt estate farming. So the scenario in Malawi is that we intensify smallholder agriculture, which has for a long time proved to be difficult. We are not able to achieve food security, nutrition security, and stuff from that perspective. So the group suggested that if government could come up with a plan or programs that will be driven by the government itself and have estate farming that will supply adequate food for the nation, its citizens, then we should be able to build sustainable livelihood. So in terms of priorities, we a myriad of priorities coming up from the group, but I understand we are supposed to just produce 3. But I'll just read through some of the priorities that came out, the way they are put. First, the issue of adherence or implementation or enforcement. I think this also came out from other presentations. We have to enforce, we have to adhere or implement the various development plans that we have, be it international or national plans and policies that we have. We should not go the other way when we're actually aiming the other way. So there was also an issue of focus on pro-poor policies. So our policies should be pro-poor. There was also a suggestion to sanitize the climate financing landscape. The experience has been a lot of funds and resources are coming into the country in different forms. And the feeling is that these resources are used on one-off projects or projects that do not enhance sustainability. So it also affects the livelihood. So we pump in a lot of resources, but the impact at the end of it is not that sustainable. So if we could sanitize the financing landscape and rephrase it into areas that can promote sustainable livelihood for the people, the better. There was an issue of markets for farmers. And this has been an experience. Farmers are failing to sell their different products. Yes, Mathews, thanks. Invest in youth innovations for future and promote context-specific livelihood initiatives. So the initiative has to be context-specific with no room for try and error, projects that are trying the different research findings and whatever. Promote inclusive livelihood interventions, so everybody has to be involved. Focus on urban livelihood enhancement programs. We should not just focus on rural livelihood enhancement. We should also consider the urban society. And the last one was ecosystem conservation, to crown it all. Thank you very much, Mathews. That's all.
Many thanks indeed, Sustainable Livelihoods, for the best presentation, just like your colleagues have done as well. We really appreciate all the inputs that have been coming through. We had a presentation from the Clean Energy Group, Forestation and Deforestation, Waste Management, Climate Smart Agriculture, and Water Resources Management, Education and Mindset Change, Youth and Grassroots Engagement, and we just finished with the Sustainable Livelihoods Group. Quite interesting issues that have come out from all these groups within a short space. And it's really quite interesting to hear you speak out, raise your voice. And I think this year we must really amplify that voice so that you are heard, but we're also able to accelerate the action. Due to time, we may not be able to read out all the messages that they have sent through, but be assured that the relevant people are taking note of your feedback, your comments, your questions. They are all here. The minister is here, the High Commissioner is here. So we are really privileged that they could really stay with us for more than 2 hours. We are now like 16 minutes behind the schedule. We're supposed to be done by now, but we really appreciate your presence, Honourable Minister, but also the High Commissioner. We thank you very much indeed. So what's going to happen is that the team is going to consolidate all the inputs that have come from the young people that are here in this meeting. And then the document shall be sent out to them to make further inputs. After that, we'll just do a bit of a cleanup and then make sure the document is submitted on their behalf by 11th February. That's 2021. It will be submitted to the Environmental Affairs Department or to the Ministry indeed, so that they can see how best they can incorporate some of the things into the things that they are doing at the moment, talking about the NDCs, the NAP, and all those things. So the document should be submitted to the government within 6 to 10 days, and make sure you follow up if it is not done. So, but we have hope that this will be done as quickly as possible. Like we're saying, time is not on our side. Let me also acknowledge all the comments that have been coming from our viewers on YouTube channel. Many thanks indeed. We value your presence there. Thank you very much. We're not able to attend to all your comments, but be assured that we have seen your comments and we'll make sure that we address some of the issues in one way or another. So since we have the High Commissioner with us. It will be very good indeed to give him another chance as a way of winding up. A lot of issues have been discussed. You also had an opportunity to interact with the media. Lots of things were discussed there, of course, with limited time. But now I'd like to give him another opportunity so that he can address us all, but also give us feedback on some of the things that have been discussed in this meeting. Over to you, Mr. David Bie.
Thanks very much, Mathews. And thank you, everybody. I've been listening in on some of the summaries of the breakout groups, and it's clear that there have been very in-depth, very creative and very passionate discussions about what needs to happen and how Malawi can go forward. And that in itself encourages me hugely. I think we've seen a range of ideas from things that the government can do, and I think it is very much a part of citizens to put good pressure on government to do good things, but also things that that people can do themselves. And I think those two combined are very powerful. I don't want to hold you further. I think this has been a fantastic discussion. Thank you very much. I really look forward to reading at more leisure some of your comments and some of the outputs of this forum when we've collated them, and I think it'd be very useful to then feed that into discussion around Malawi's nationally determined contributions. So thanks very much again, everybody. It's been a wonderful afternoon, and back to you, Matt.
Thank you very much. That's the UK High Commissioner to Malawi speaking to us in this meeting. Thank you for your presence. Let's now cross over to, let's introduce the Minister. Once again, the Minister of Forestry and Natural Resources, Honourable Nancy Tembo, MP. What are your winding up remarks, Honourable Minister, having listened to young people say all these things in this forum?
You know, earlier on I said we cannot begin to win this war without the young people. And as you have seen, the contributions that have been made just goes to show that we need to work together, to the young people, to hear and listen to the young people. And these contributions that they have made go a long way in strengthening the national determined contributions that we will be dealing with in a short while. But I wish we had more time to interrogate some of them. And I hope that going forward, the ministry, together with the young people, with these groupings, will be able to get together so that we have a very solid set of nationally determined contributions. So congratulations to all the young people that participated on this forum. We are listening, and your views will be taken into consideration so that together we can have a better position as Malawi. And thank you very much to the British High Commission and to you, Malata, Mathews Malata, for moderating these conversations. Thank you very much.
I'll give you an opportunity, Honourable Minister. There is a sticker issue. I'll just give you maybe 1 minute or so. I think it is important. The issue of charcoal. There's a lot that's going on, especially after the Nation newspaper article. And I'm sure young people are very much interested to hear from you as to what are the plans for the ministry? What are you doing to address this issue? Maybe this is also your opportunity to address us on this specific issue. Just 1 minute or 2 minutes, if you don't mind, Honourable.
We just have to find alternatives. We have to find alternatives, and it's an issue that is an urgent issue that we're trying to think through, but also come up with ideas that are implementable. We have talked about these things for a long, long time, but there's really nothing tangible that has happened to even begin to impact on the mindset change of the people. But we seriously now thinking, and we will engage with the young people. We engage with the British High Commission when we have thought through our ideas, and we would like to come up with a really, really ambitious, huge plans that will make a difference. So yes, it is a challenge, but it's something that I think together we can we'll be able to achieve. We can begin to make an impact, to change people from using biomass to moving to these alternative sources of energy. So yes, it's a challenge. Yes, everybody's concerned, but we are thinking about it seriously, and very soon we should be able to engage all various stakeholders.
Many thanks indeed, Honourable Minister. We appreciate for being here, but also we appreciate your officials that are really working closely with you. I see we have had the director with you throughout. That's Madam Taonga Mbale. We have had Mr. Golivad, Mr. Yasin, Madam Shamiso Nigeria. They have been with us throughout. We really appreciate your presence, but also the collaboration that you have with the young people. Many thanks once again to the UK Commission with Malawi. That's Mr. David Beer. Thanks very much. We do not take your presence here for granted, and thanks for accepting the invitation to grace this occasion. Many thanks, Dominic, for the wonderful presentation you did. I'd like also to thank the organizing team, the BRAC Hub team members. Many thanks to you. You have really done a good job. We really appreciate Catherine managing this Zoom call, and everybody in the background. We appreciate. Thanks our viewers on our YouTube channel. We appreciate your presence. Let's also acknowledge different organizations that have been involved in the organization of this meeting. The Center for Environmental Policy and Advocacy, you have got the Association of Environmental Journalists in Malawi, but also the UK office here in Malawi. They have been very, very helpful in making sure that this is really done. Benson and team, we thank you very much indeed for your inputs. Otherwise, we owe it to you. Over 80 participants, or about 80 participants, that you really had to find some time to be part of this meeting. It could not have happened without you, and we cannot talk about sustainable development without you being on the other end. So we also want to appreciate you for creating this time. I hope this is the beginning of more engagements to come. Wish you all the best. Let's keep the momentum high. And I'll close with another quote from Greta. She says, "We cannot solve a crisis without treating it as a crisis. And if solutions within the system are so impossible to find, then maybe we should change the system itself." I would like to thank you very much indeed for being there. My name is Mathews Malata, and I really appreciate that we are able to be here in this meeting together. All the best. Keep safe. Corona is real. Bye-bye.